Know that life is not fair and that you will fail often. But if you take some risks, step up when the times are the toughest, face down the bullies, lift up the downtrodden, and never, ever give up, if you do these things, the next generation and the generations that follow will live in a world far better than the one we have today. And what started here will indeed have changed the world for the better. Thank you very much. Hook 'em horns.
Welcome back to the channel. In this week's clip, we're going to be looking at a commencement ceremony for the Navy SEALs, and the way he articulates how they use energy law to train the soldiers is so perfectly fitting to this whole program. But the thing you have to understand is the average person is never going to have this type of Navy SEAL training. But you do need to be able to apply the principles that he's describing into your own life. And that's part of the challenge that we all face, is that the average person will never have the benefit of having that level of focused training to create new programming in your brain to override all of the habits and programming you've already created. Other videos in this series, we're going to show you how you do that yourself without the benefit of something like military training. But for this one, we wanted to show you probably the most extreme way that reprogramming gets done through one of the biggest institutions in the world, which is the U.S. military. Let's play the clip.
So the university's slogan is, what starts here changes the world. Well, I've got to admit, I kind of like it. What starts here changes the world. But changing the world can happen anywhere, and anyone can do it. Every day during training, you were challenged with multiple physical events: long runs, long swims, obstacle courses, hours of calisthenics, something designed to test your mettle. Every event had standards, times you had to meet. If you failed to meet those times, those standards, your name was posted on a list, and at the end of the day, those on the list were invited to a circus. A circus was 2 hours of additional calisthenics, designed to wear you down, to break your spirit, to force you to quit. No one wanted a circus. A circus meant that for that day, you didn't measure up. A circus meant more fatigue, and more fatigue meant that the following day would be more difficult, and more circuses were likely. But at some time during SEAL training, everyone made the circus list. But an interesting thing happened to those who were constantly on the list. Over time, those students who did 2 hours of extra calisthenics got stronger and stronger. The pain of the circuses built inner strength and physical resiliency. Life is filled with circuses. You will fail. You will likely fail often. It will be painful. It will be discouraging. At times, it will test you to your very core. But if you want to change the world, don't be afraid of the circuses. Finally, in SEAL training, there's a bell. A brass bell that hangs in the center of the compound for all the students to see. All you have to do to quit is ring the bell. Ring the bell, and you no longer have to wake up at 5 o'clock. Ring the bell, and you no longer have to be in the freezing cold swims. Ring the bell, and you no longer have to do the runs, the obstacle course, the PT, and you no longer have to endure the hardships of training. All you have to do is ring the bell to get out. If you want to change the world, don't ever ring the bell.
He is so perfectly describing energy law. When I found that clip, I was dancing. I was dancing in my living room when I found that clip, because it's perfect. You know, you're gonna fail, and everyone at the end of the day, the people that failed the worst have to work even harder, and the people that have to work harder got stronger. He's describing it perfectly.
Yeah, and so there's a couple of things with that. It's so the people that fail have to work harder, but what are they working harder on at that point? Like, they've already failed, and so now they have to go and they have to try something that's even harder, which I find interesting that that's how they do it. But it seems like they're breaking. Your body at that point has failed, and your mind has failed, and so they're taking you right back to the awareness, to your spirit, and that's what they focus on. that's what the circus is about. The circus is about building resilience of spirit. So what do you have? It's, well, you're already worn out and you already can't do it. You can't pass the easy test, which I'm sure is not easy, but you can't pass the easy test. And so now we're going to take you and put you into this circuit, which is even harder than the first one. And we're going to present you, and this is where I see the awareness part come in, because the awareness is always about choice. And so what you have is we're going to work you even harder, but we're also going to give you the bell.
You have the option to leave. It is your choice.
It's choice. That's all they're working on right there. Is you are either going to overcome the resistance or you are not. And that has to come from a choice that is within you. You have to strengthen that awareness to not give up and to keep pushing against that resistance. And so that's given them. And they're either going to do it or they're not going to do it. But they know they have to break everyone back is right down the line and start building from spirit.
And he actually says that. He says, yeah. He says training is a bunch of obstacles to test your mettle and see if we can break your spirit. He actually says that.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like even they don't understand why they're saying these words, I think, for the most part, or maybe they are and just nobody is understanding them, or maybe we're just the ones not understanding it. But it really comes down to they have to break these soldiers down to spirit, strengthen them on the awareness point of choice, to understand that they have to overcome resistance. Like, that is their primary goal, is overcome resistance and learn not to move away from the resistance.
Well, that's what I saw from it too right away, was that people think that basic training or SEAL training is there to create discipline. But discipline is actually the secondary thing that they're creating. What they're doing is they are frying all of your pre-existing programming and replacing it with a new programming. Because all of your bad habits must be annihilated. And this total exhaustion of mind, body, and spirit is how they're basically frying all of the pre-existing circuitry that you've created through all of your bad habits and decisions in your entire life leading up to that moment where you've made this choice to do this.
Yeah, and the way they're doing it is, again, they start with the spirit. They're starting with this awareness. And they have to get you to understand that going forward, you have to make those choices. Like, the choices are where it starts. And from those choices, you rebuild mind circuitry. And once you've rebuilt the mind circuitry, you start rebuilding body circuitry. The ability to deal with uncomfortable situations, like where they're, the SEAL teams where you see them, in the water with waves crashing over them while they're holding on to these giant heavy logs, and just having that will and that mental endurance to deal with the pain of that resistance with their bodies. And then once they've achieved that, then you actually have these human weapons that could overcome things that most people can't. But it's that circuitry. You're starting with the mind, making that choice, then creating new neural circuitry that allows you to overcome the physical resistances, and then training your body to be able to overcome those physical resistances. And once they have that, they have a machine that can overcome almost any obstacle that's put in front of them.
Well, and I guarantee you, if you survive that process, you have short-circuited any bad programming you had before you entered that program, big time. They will strip you down to a clean slate, is the real goal of it all. They will turn you into the soldier they need you to be.
And I think one of the toughest parts of it is, how do you strip down the human spirit? And that bell is genius. You always have the choice. The choice is always there. And at any time you can just go ring it.
And that's why conscription doesn't work. Like when they were forcing young people to go to Vietnam, they just said, well, you're sending your draft papers, and if you're not there, you're going to get arrested. Well, yeah, when you remove that choice from it, it's why it doesn't work.
Yeah. Because it always starts there. If you're building circuitry, it has to start with that awareness, that internal all-seeing awareness
You have to want to do it. It's no more lip service. It's time for action. If resistance is constant, for the potential to increase, current must increase. You got to stop talking about it, and you got to start doing it. And then in the action phase, when current is constant, for potential to increase, resistance must increase, which is what he's describing. We keep you in a state of constant action, and we throw ever increasing amounts of resistance at you. And like he said, the people that got the circus, after weeks of circuses, they got stronger. Energy Law 101. That whole clip just blows my mind that they're talking so much around it. It's amazing.
It's interesting that the military has figured this out, and yet they can't implement this into education. Like this just has never been implemented into any of that. But they know it. They know it works.
It was there, but we've systematically removed it. And that's all path of least resistance, because it's too hard for the teachers to actually teach the lessons. That's what I see. We've got all of this path of least resistance problem now that is infiltrating a whole education system, whereas school wasn't easy at the beginning. School was never easy. If you look at a test that it took to graduate elementary school at the turn of the century, it makes college look like a joke now. And it's just been systematically removed. Exactly.
Yeah, it's getting worse and worse all the time. Like they're literally removing every standard from every school. And in the meantime, it's quite well known what actually works. Like we're seeing that, but just amazing to see how the universities and the schools and the unions, they're removing the only thing that really matters. It's just been taken out of it.
Thank you for watching. This is a new format we're kind of working with. I've brought in fellow Seniorthinktank.ca contributor Chris into the equation here, because I think we can all benefit from two perspectives on these clips instead of just me rambling on here by myself. And we're going to test this out. So keep watching. We're going to have more clips coming, and hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next week.
Anyone can change the world, and we're changing the world. You got to train your spirit, that awareness in you. You've got to train your mind. Then you've got to train your body. And then, after you've done that, you can change the world.